ensemble.
Okay, switch to the other person.
In the University of Arkansas, I was a part of Kappa Kappa Psi as an officer for 2 years. I was a part of Finding Off the Symphonia, multiple ensembles, an ensemble, jazz ensemble, trumpet ensemble, choir, a little orchestra, like professionally playing at some of the local orchestras and a few other professional gigs around this area. And yeah.
What instrument do you play?
Sorry again?
What instrument do you play?
Trumpet.
Okay. Play piano?
A little bit, not like exceptionally well, but I can play.
Okay. And did you have any jobs that worked with kids?
Yeah, actually, I just recently, from January until March, I taught at Lincoln High School, just 30 minutes down the road, as a band director for a long-term sufferer teacher that was going on maternity leave. And then right now, I'm teaching as a substitute teacher around the area, just subbing in Fayetteville, Bentonville, Spring school systems.
Okay, so I just want to ask one question. How many of you started for when you were like 3 or 4 years old? How many started about when you were in elementary school, middle school, high school? Okay, yeah, so we want kind of a, around high school time, college time. How many of you talked about jobs that you were doing that worked with kids that weren't necessarily music related? Okay, if you have any kind of jobs like that, do you have any questions about some of the things that maybe you were wondering if you should say during this time? Or
should you talk about jobs like that?
Yes.
Kids,
yeah. Yeah. Anything you can talk about that's working with kids, even if it's not music related. You worked at a camp in the summer, like a Bible camp or something. All of those things tell me that you have an interest in kids and you've had experience with kids. Sometimes people will come and have not worked very much with kids. They don't have their own kids. And so it's really having to learn about children and the different developmental stages they go through. So was that pretty easy? Okay, good. The next one is tell me about your strengths. And some of the people that I've worked with over several times that I've done interviewing here's a strength I have, and then they kind of slip in an example. So see if you can figure out some examples, and maybe pick 3 strengths just to start with in your head so you have those kind of all figured out, okay? So let's walk 9 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Introduce yourselves. Okay, and here we go. Can you just join a group?
Talking to other teachers in my field and being part of that and staying in contact with people.
I also love, I'm like very helpful, like that's my personality. I just like to go out and help people. So when I work with kids, I tend to have relatively close background, a large span of starting from when they were babies.
Don't look at the time. Okay, switch. Stop looking at the time. I'll tell you, okay? Just relax. Talk about something else when you're done.
Yeah, now it's your turn.
I have one left over, so if one of you wants to get in the mix and just listen.
Okay.
When we split up next time, you guys can both get in there and whatever. Just listen to answers. Okay. When we switch it up again, there'll be one left over.
And I take an hour or 2 to help her out with her
Okay, and I'll have you stop. Okay, was there any uncomfortableness with that? Okay, what was uncomfortable? Let's do a little talking here.
For me personally, it's hard to talk about my strengths because I'm a very reflective person, and I like to look on what can I improve to do better, and I often forget to look, oh, this is what I'm already doing well at, or what I have improved on. I'm trying to think of what I can continue to improve on rather than focusing on my strengths.
But that would be a strength right there, wouldn't it, that she's reflective? So I would say that would be something to put in your strengths. Anything else?
I'd be scared to come off as bragging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hard part, and that's what most people have said to me. It's like, how do I not sound? I think if you can come up with an example, like here I am, and here's an example, I think that's going to probably help that. Instead of here's all the great things I've been, pick 3. That kind of shows a little modesty, if as a place to start. And if you have 4 things that you think are really your strengths, go with 4. But having something to back it up, I think an example really helps tone that down. At least for yourself. Anything else? Okay. All right, if we went to the school, how many of you have taught now? So you've worked with some kids. Okay, so this is about if we went to a school you were teaching at, how would the students describe you as a teacher? Okay, so let's go 7 big steps. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if there's somebody without a person, we have. Is there somebody without a person? Thank you. Okay, here we go. How would kids describe you?
Okay. Well,
Okay, and you can switch. Go ahead and switch.
So I have been teaching this semester and split I work with them all the time. And I was like, we'll work on this portion. So I usually like to okay, let's figure out what we're working on. I usually have someone do for high school, I but I always had about 4 days, and I had already marked sections that we were going to do.
Okay, I'm going to have you stop. So before I forget, I want to just remind you about posture. So hands in pockets, going like this when you're talking, and think of what your body's doing. I mean, you'll be sitting down when you interview, but right now be cognizant of what your body's doing. 'Cause sometimes your body will do things you don't even know they're doing because you're nervous, and some of those things happen. So on this one, if you use the word fun in your conversation, how is the administrator going to interpret the word fun?
You're there to entertain instead of
Yes.
in certain ways.
Yes, and they already think that we can pull a concert together sometimes in 2 rehearsals, and because we're just in there and we just can do all this, and it's where the kids are joyful and they are having a good time in there, yes, but why is that? It's because you break things down, you help them, you scaffold, you support them. All of those things make it fun because they're successful. So what are some other words you can use instead of the word fun? Engaging, energetic,
Lifeful.
delightful,
Lifeful.
lifeful. Good. So think about the words you used and how those words are interpreted by somebody who may not understand the rigor and all of the work that we put into teaching. We make it look easy too, amongst all that. So think of those kinds of words. And I'm going to say this now before I forget too, is like practice questions in the mirror at home and talk out loud, because isn't talking out loud different than thinking in your head? And then you go, oh, I didn't say that in the right order, I was rambling, or, and I think the more we practice this today, the less rambling you're going to do. Do you already feel like it's better than the first question? Okay. So any questions, concerns about that one? Okay. And if you haven't had a lot of experience with kids, you can maybe just interject how you're thinking they should think about you, right? So sometimes you have to, you want to know what you're going to be like as a teacher before you walk into that interview. All right. Sometimes you may have to conduct a group. Sometimes you may have to think about some literature that you might use. How many of you could think of at least one piece of literature right now and why you would use that piece of literature with students? Think you could all do that? Okay. And I've had interviews where people bring the safe titles, like everybody knows these titles and these are the popular titles, but I want you to start thinking about what message are you sending those kids. In choir, it might be lyrics. It might be a piece by a composer of color or a woman composer. So why are you teaching something like that? So start to broaden your mind about what you might teach kids. If there's, you might want to throw in standards. You have, this is what our standards are all about, and this piece addresses the standard. You don't have to know exactly which one, but know the concept of it. So tie standards into there too. So if you do that, okay, let's do 14 steps quickly. Are we substituting in and out? Did we get to 14 yet? Find your partner, introduce yourself, and here we go. Switch. Sorry, I forgot. Switch. Switch. Hey, and I'm going to have you stop. And I'd like to have some sharing of what you heard that you liked. What did you hear that you liked? Yes. Thank you.
Allison said that she would want to use the Irish tune, and it gives kids the chance to explore musicality and really stretch their musicianship. So I think that was really good because it's student-centered and focusing on their potential for musicality.
Mm-hmm. Great. Good job. Who else? Yes.
Stephen here talked about doing Don't Stop Believin' in the band arrangement because it is getting the students involved and active, relating it to songs that they know, and then still being able to pull teaching moments out of it in the more difficult passages of the piece.
And relationships, rigor, and relevance. So which one does that fit into? Relevance. And I like that answer. I mean, I some people, the band directors in the room might go, well, why would he pick that? We should be playing this piece way up here, or this, well-known band piece. But that's going to speak to the hearts of the people interviewing you. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Sorry. Paige had a really good one about bringing classics into the elementary school and listening to like Peter the Wolf, Carnival of the Animals, and all of that, doing a lot of Del Cruz and kinesthetic movements with the really young, bringing the classics down.
While you're moving and all those other things you can tie into it. Yeah, great. Anything else?
Nicole had a really good one that was a song that had the same lyrics, and for two different parts of the song they were contrasting styles, and how just with punctuation and phrasing and things like that it could even change the meaning of what they were saying, and I think that would be a really good thing to also, we talked about in explaining to your interview that you are also incorporating in the academic things that they're learning in other places, and the standards in lots of different places in different levels of learning have compare and contrast, and how you're supposed to authentically be able to do that. And so if you can tell your interviewer, I'm collaborating with their classroom teacher, I'm pulling in this that they're learning from somewhere else, we are reinforcing the skills that they're learning in other places so that they are authentically learning it, not just I can do it here and only here by itself.
Yeah.
But I could really actually use this concept that I've learned. You're going to see your value not just as you're a music teacher, you babysit them when they need their time.
Right.
Oh, you're actually teaching them something I need them to know somewhere else. You might be really important to me now, so maybe I want to keep you here. So I thought that was a really good piece to do that.
Which is a very good point, because all my life I've looked to general education to see what's going on. In music, we tend to just look within ourselves. The research is all within music, and all this, everything we do is because somebody else in music had thought of this. But when you look out to the general education world and see what's going on and how you can tie into that, it's always exciting for you as a teacher to be able to do that. This is also could be a great springboard to doing songwriting by just changing up the lyrics or maybe changing up the melody a little bit. So try to think about how you can throw those standards in there. So that would be a great piece to do that with. Okay, any other sharing thoughts? Okay, next one is describe your classroom routine, and don't look at the right side. Those will just give you some hints, but I'm not gonna leave them up there. So, whoops, I can't do that yet. Stop. No, let's go 7 steps. Pick a new person. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Somebody you haven't talked to. Lock eyes. Shake hands.
Hello, I'm Ruby.
Okay, your classroom routine. You got one. Is there a group of 3 somewhere? Okay, here we go. You can sit out this one.
You're not like coming at me. Inside my
And just depending on the style of music that I'm doing, if it's really lively, I would do a warm-up that requires them to play lively. If they are doing something that requires musicality, where like it's nice, slow, and pretty, like some American piece, I would do something that requires stacking of chords and work on that so they can improve their skills at the same time. And then from there, start off with a piece that is very like familiar, they are really good with already, they were all in, then move on to more difficult pieces. Continue to start with a piece that they already know, and then move to the piece, but then like grow into the concept that they need to be working on.
Okay, go ahead and switch to the other person.
And then at the end, really slow down again, and then
let's bring our attention back together again. I would bet if we listened to every one of your answers, they would be pretty much the same, right? Did anybody hear anything different from how they thought about it? Yes.
Julia talked about private lessons because that's the main experience that she has, and she talked about tailoring it to each student, how she has to do that, and also adapting throughout the lesson too.
Mm-hmm. So if you pre-assess your kids, you know where they're at. We heard that this morning. You know where each student is at. You can tailor your whole, even if it's in a large group, you can tailor that to what those kids need. How about, who said something really neat about ending class to hook them to want to come back again? Anybody talk about how they might do that?
Kelsey actually was talking about how she was ending her class with a thought-provoking question or a thought-provoking comment for her children to leave and to be thinking about when they leave before they come back to the next class. I thought that was interesting.
And so then you would cover that on the next class? Is that what you do? Yeah, that's great. Anybody else have anything on how to end the class? Okay. The next one is describe your grading process. I want to see forget the percentage. You don't need to know percentage. Just what are you going to grade on? How are you going to get those grades? How often would you assess those kinds of things? Okay, let's do 5 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're done. Shake hands. Hello. Here we go.
I like to just always be kind of grading, always assessing what students are doing every second of every day. So big things should be effort, preparing to do things so you make space, programs, instrument stuff together, everything's working together. How much effort they're putting in every day, working, staying on top of things, they're learning all the materials and stuff. For the lower stuff, that's like say middle school, junior high, if we redo every now and then we'll do pass off, or two lines and pass this off. The biggest thing in my classroom is performance. Big performance, like concert, assessment, all that stuff. I love performances. I love giving students a chance to perform. And often in the classroom, I love to sit there and go, okay, go do it.
Okay, will you switch, please? Switch with the other person. Okay, I'm just going to have you stop right there.
You have to get to that, right?
I cheated on the time because we're running out of time. But so I want to ask a question. What were you graded on?
Attendance.
Playing records.
Playing records?
Yeah, like you would write down how many minutes you were supposed to practice.
Oh, practice records. Okay.
Yeah, practice records, not playing.
Okay, yeah. And attendance, what else?
Participation in class.
Participation in class. What else?
Part tests.
Huh?
Part tests.
Part tests, okay. So, what should most of your grade be about?
Development. Effort.
Content, right? You don't need to grade on attendance because they take attendance in every class. So content. Then we get into the effort and, how they work with other people and their contribution to the group. So let's call that approach to learning. So which one should have more weight in the grade, the content or the approach to learning?
I think the approach to learning, because you have different kinds of kids with different kinds of abilities, and what one kid may be able to do, another kid may not be able to do, but that one kid who's on the lower scale of ability is trying really hard, at the same time the kid on the higher scale is trying just as hard. So they may not do the same content-wise, but they're both putting in the same amount of effort.
So what if you would, we learned this morning from Alice Hamill, like you're assigning different types of content or how much they have to do. Maybe it's 4 measures and not 8. So can you still grade on content with the kids of all levels? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I want you to really think about this as a teacher. I'm not going to say anything's right or wrong and how much, which gets more weight. But I can tell you administrators want to grade on content. The approach to learning thing, we've really had to talk to our administrators that this should be part of the grade because not everybody else has that, but nobody else has 80 people in a class, right, with noisemakers. So if you have some valid reasons for a large part of your grade being approach to learning, you have to really be able to defend that. If you feel like content is more, or maybe you think they're equal, or one is less than the other, you need to think that through, but you also need to think of what is, and we're not jumping through hoops for the administrators. We want to show that kids can grow. And so again, you still have to prove that kids have growth in whatever they're doing, whether it's somebody at a lower level getting up to the next level. A level 1 on a rubric goes to a 2, a 4 goes off the charts because you've provided something to challenge them too. So really think about that. Are pencils that important in a grade? Can you fix that problem? Yeah, so I mean, think about all those things. And sometimes we kind of revert back to the way we were taught, which maybe isn't the best way. Maybe you learned a lot, maybe you did a great job, but everybody succeeded, got an A. Maybe that's not true. When you really start to dig in and find out what each student is able to do, you have different motivation levels and things like that. And our last question is, what does diversity mean to you? And think of not just culture, but we talked this morning about abilities. You have kids that are transgender now. You have all sorts of varieties of students coming to your classroom. We have kids with trauma. We have kids with high anxiety. How are you going to assess kids with high anxiety? Should you have kids play in front of the class? Or should you give them options? You can play in front of the class. You can play for me individually. You can play for me after school. You can play for me during the last 5 minutes of class. I mean, think of all those things and how that interplays into your how you teach. So would you just take 2 steps, find a new person? 1, 2. And here we go. Okay, I'm going to have you switch. We're going to just have a shortened time. Switch to the other person. Okay, I'm going to have you stop. Another question might be talk about a problem or conflict you had and how you resolved it. So you're showing them how you can work your way out of something. A lot of times it's just relationships with people and talking about things. And I know we're over, so let's take 30 seconds. And how much more comfortable are you answering questions now than a half hour ago? Much more? Okay, do you feel like you were thinking more about flow of things? Again, talk to yourself in a mirror, your dog, whatever, and practice questions. When you're done with the interview, when you get up, shake the hands of every person in that room again. Tell them thank you for the interview. I've had people follow up with handwritten thank you notes. If they tell you they're going to tell you that they're going to make a decision by a certain date, don't call them until maybe a day or two after and just say, I'm just checking in to see, because sometimes things happen, they don't get the decision made. Bring a notebook to the interview with questions on it. Find out things about the school district. Take notes maybe when they say things about the position. Unless you have really good memory, like the guy at lunch today that remembered 7 people's orders. Like, how do you do that? But by those kinds of things, give me cues that you've thought about this job and you're just not taking any job. You're thinking through this position, how it relates to what you want. And again, think about what you want as a teacher and how it relates to kids. So, any questions about anything real quick in our 5 seconds? No, just kidding.
I know it's a good idea to ask questions. Are there questions you want to avoid? Like, should the questions be specific to the job that you're doing, or is it okay to ask them their opinions on some things? Like philosophical.
That's an interesting question. Let me think about that. No. So it's the choice between...
So, like, you could ask, okay, what's the procedure for this at this school? You know, or you could ask, what do you want your kids to get out of being in band, or what's your idea of culture in this program?
I would avoid the questions to the administrators and teachers about what your philosophy is, just because they're not the ones being interviewed. But if there is a person that you'd be working with, maybe that would be okay. I mean, if you know that connection is there. We had a person ask us one time, why do you think I should have this job? And we kind of went, well, that's not good. Don't talk about money either. But that you can talk about later. You can actually look at their pay scale online, I'm sure, and figure all that out. There are things that you do, there are extra pay for, though. So I guess I would ask, you know, what are the extra duties? Is there compensation for that? You know, like if you're doing marching band, there's probably a compensation. What is my budget like? Nobody asks that question. What's my supply budget? If you have none, then you know you have nothing to work with. If you have this great supply budget, you know, you can start thinking about how you're going to spend your money. But is there a rental program? Do you provide instruments for all kids? Those kinds of questions. Equity access, I think, would be really good. So it depends on how much time has gone. Like some people will have 20 questions. We did an interview one time where we started on question 1. The woman pulled out a PowerPoint about her classroom, her philosophy, and her life. And the principal went down to question 20, and I knew exactly what she was doing. So, I mean, there's all sorts of things that happen that I've seen, but I know you guys won't do those things. The biggest thing is just, you know, show your passion, show what you know about working with kids, show what you know about content, and that you've thought some of these things through. So, great. Thank you.
We have one more session with Mrs. Odegaard. We'll take a break, though, for a few moments. And there are some snacks in the lobby. If you guys want some snacks.
Go buy snacks, right?
And bathroom breaks and all that fun stuff.
Do you want to help me get to the other?
Yeah, let me turn my
Okay. Thank you for stepping in.
Oh, you're welcome.
I love listening to you talk about teaching. You have